Joining us now for more is Kevin Green, senior markets correspondent for the Schwab Network. Kevin, all right, now I might be a believer in this China stimulus. It's even got the lowly NIO turning around as the stock's up 70% over the last month. That is just astronomical price performance for a stock that had largely fallen out of favor with all the competitors that have come online within China for EVs.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, even today up 5%. I mean, this is after some of this China stimulus news that has come to the market. And then also some investors actually getting into this name here. Now, NIO is actually reporting that strategic investors are willing to put up around $470.7 million worth of investment into the new shares of the company, as well as NIO investing around $1.4 billion into the car company itself. Just shows the optimism that they have for this name, as well as the competition within this space, and maybe some of the technology that they're able to offer compared to their competitors. But once again, this is just the enthusiasm and some of the ways that Chinese investors are really trying to express their optimism when it comes to their markets. And this has been a company that has been, as you kind of said, like left for dead. And now we are seeing a little bit of a revival. I think the big question now, Alex, is if this is going to be sustainable when it comes to the price action. Could there be more in the tank for this name, or are we going to see maybe a little bit of a reversion once we get closer and closer to earnings? But these stimulus measures that have been put into place, these new strategic investors are the reason why we are seeing this stock catch a bid. And I think it's a welcoming sign for those that have been holding this name for a very long time and have not seen the price appreciation like they expected.
Okay, so Kevin, I'm curious your thoughts on any potential for this to be a short squeeze, because I'm not discounting that they got a massive amount of funding, don't get me wrong, and that obviously anytime that you're able to get extra cash, it's huge. But NIO has also been a bit of a failing trade for quite some time. And you zoom out, you could hardly see this nice move to the upside. So, I mean, is this like right now a lot of these investors trying to take advantage of the current stimulus situation?
I think so. I mean, there might be a short squeeze component that is taking place, also a little bit of a gamma squeeze. I mean, there is a lot of options activity that does take place on this name, well, a fair amount on a relative basis. So there might have been some market makers caught off guard for now, and this is kind of the result of that taking place. You know, when we kind of talk about some of these other names, though, you know, outside of NIO, talk about the Alibabas of the world, JD.coms, the Baidus, they actually were not significant short targets in the market. So a lot of these investors, or a lot of this price movement has been new investors coming into these names. I would suspect that that's also the case when it comes to NIO. So maybe initially a little bit of a short squeeze, but I think there's more longer term vision for a lot of these investors than what we've seen in the past.
Kevin, when you look holistically at this, as you're kind of tying it to, you know, the Alibabas, the Baidus, I'm just looking across kind of the Chinese EV names in general. XPeng, after popping earlier, has actually turned red on the session. Li Auto, of course, it's had a really nice, month, over 30% to the upside, but it's only up 1% now. I know this story is a little bit more NIO specific, but the China stimulus in general is kind of broad, and it's kind of kind of this giant sweeping performance that we've seen across all these names. Are we starting to see signs that that kind of euphoria around that announcement is starting to maybe peak out a little bit, and it's going to take more specific stories like what we're seeing in NIO to keep some of these moves on the same trajectory?
That might be the case. I think that's the biggest item that a lot of investors that are optimistic when it comes to the China trade need to be mindful of. I mean, the economic data is probably not going to be that great over the next 2 to 3 months, and stimulus measures can take 4 to 5 months, or even longer than that, to actually be reflected in the economy. So if you really wanted to have confidence that these new measures are actually holding, you could look at 3 different data points. I would look at industrial production for China. I would also then look at the import-export data, and specifically the import data when it comes to energy products. Are they importing more crude oil? Are they importing more gasoline? And then the last one that's a higher frequency data point is the USDA import-export data, or the export data that we have for the USDA. And if you are seeing an increase in exports or orders being placed from China for soybeans and for corn, those are going to be your 3 areas where, last 30, 40, 50 years have been really good indicators that China stimulus measures have been, successful. And so I would say that keep keep those on your playbook here. Are we seeing maybe a little bit of a fizzling out of the enthusiasm? That might be the case, and rightfully so. A lot of these stocks have maybe moved a little bit too far, too fast for the time being. Doesn't mean that China shares themselves cannot continue to rally, but maybe some of the ADRs over here might be a little bit more expensive to try to play, especially when you're looking at the options market, which IV for a lot of these names has just skyrocketed.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely an added interest in some of these names. I mean, the volume on NIO is the whole reason I was drawn to it today, just because it trades insubstantially. So it was one of the heaviest trade, at least across the platform that I could see. So we'll leave it there, but great breakdown and great insight on some of the strength we're seeing in these Chinese names. Kevin Green, senior markets correspondent for the network.